Chapter 1 Polarity. Eli loved flying even if flying didn't always love him. Learning to fly in a technologically advanced metal suit that was worth millions of dollars had been fun despite the occasional bruises. Flying around a large city while trying to dodge fireballs was entirely different from a controlled training area, and he nearly collided with the building. Chromium caught him before he could crash into the window of an office. Sorry, Eli told the people inside who were staring at them wide-eyed. I'm new at this. Chromium sighed and pulled him away. I knew I should have taken you flying around the city more. You're going to cause more damage than the bad guys. I'll be fine. He tried to reassure his mentor, and they split up to dodge the fireball aimed at them. Do you need help dealing with Smokeburn? Leave old Smokey to me. Supervillains might be too tough for you at the moment, Chromium replied. You take care of his goons and try not to break too many things. His mentor flew off and Eli counted how many hired thugs were around. There were 10 of them in total and they were armed with guns. They were loading bags of money into a truck. He swooped down and grabbed a bag of money, shaking it mockingly at them. What's up, guys? He quipped. A little early for payday. They aimed and shot at him, the bullets bouncing off his armor. He threw electric blasts at 2 of them and they collapsed to the ground, convulsing from the shock. He swooped down and grabbed the rifle from another thug and hit him with the butt end. Another thug shot him at the back of the head, the ricochet against his helmet making him dizzy for a second. That hurt. Eli punched the thug in the face. Jerk. 4 down and 6 more to go. They surrounded him and threw punches. He dodged one and threw an uppercut that made the thug soar 2 feet into the air. He threw another punch and the thug flew into another, knocking them both out. The remaining 4 tried to pile onto him, 2 of them trying to hold back his arms. The center of his suit glowed bright, neon purple as it charged up. A large electric blast shot out of suit and incapacitated the men. That was all 10. He looked over the unconscious men and flew into the air. He went to where Chromium was fighting with Smokeburn in the middle of the plaza. It still felt surreal to Eli that he was actually there and seeing these two fight in real life and not on TV. The countless time he watched these two battling off and dreamed of fighting alongside Chromium. Little Eli would have been proud and ecstatic. Need some help, boss? He asked. Hey, rookie, Chromium replied as he blocked a punch. You took care of the thugs? Easy as pie. I was hoping for more of a challenge. Don't get all cocky now. Smokeburn cut in. That is rich coming from you. Chromium landed 2 punches and one on his nose that made a sickening crack. Don't start, Smokey. We all know which of us gets their butt kicked because they're always too cocky. Smokeburn pinched the bridge of his nose which was already bleeding. Over 30 years of this and you're still a little sh. Has it been that long? Chromium shook his head, disappointed. And you still suck at this? The villain rolled his eyes and gestured to Eli. Who's that? New recruit. I'm teaching him the ropes. Of course you are. Smokeburn recovered and threw a gust of fire that Chromium blocked with his arms crossed in front of him. His metal suit absorbed the heat and cooled down to protect him. Smokeburn redirected a large fireball at Eli that he narrowly dodged. Annoyed, Eli flew down and threw a punch at the villain who blocked it. Smokeburn was twice his body weight and taller. A punch to Eli's gut would have made him bow over in pain if it wasn't for his suit absorbing the impact. A swift kick to his side nearly brought him to his knees. Smokeburn scoffed. What are you? 15. No, Eli retorted. I'm not a kid. Pick on somebody your own size. Chromium interrupted and engaged the villain into another series of blows. The AI of Eli's suit chimed in with watch out for vehicular impact. As a truck nearly hit Chromium, the hero flew out of the way and the back of the truck opened. Somebody wearing a red mask pulled Smokeburn into the truck. Eli flew and chased the truck and the man in the red mask threw a large gust of fire at a building. Eli swerved towards the screams. Glass exploded and he flew through the smoke. Chromium joined him and they got the people out of the building to a safe place. A few people were hurt but they would be fine. The truck was completely gone even as they tried to track it. They flew onto the rooftop of a building as the police arrived and arrested the hired thugs. I'm sorry that Smokeburn got away, Eli said. It's fine, Minimi, Chromium reassured him. We'll get him next time and there's always a next time. That had to be true. Eli couldn't imagine fighting someone for over 30 years. That was longer than Eli had been alive. Chromium tapped at the side of his metal mask and it peeled back to show his face. George Carlyle being a real-life superhero hadn't been that much of a shock. A genius billionaire that owned the largest tech company in the country as Chromium's real identity made a lot of sense. Who else would have access to the kind of technology that was in their metal suits? Don't you need to be moving into the dorms at CIT? Chromium gave him a look. See that girlfriend of yours? What's her name again? Monica. Mona, Eli corrected, glad that his face was covered. And she's not my girlfriend. Whatever you say, rookie. Chromium flew into the air. Mission over. Get to school. Eli made his way out of the city and towards campus. He was bolstered by the thought of seeing Mo again. Maybe this would be the year he would ask her out and then she'd really be his girlfriend. Here's to hope. Chapter 2 Anik. Eli walked into the sophomore dorms in the Parker building of Clark Institute of Technology. Tadashi signed them up for residency as early as possible. They both had been set on accessing the taco bar in the dining hall that had been cruelly denied them the previous year. This would not be another year of convenience store tacos. The injustice must end. He found their dorm room and walked into Tadashi putting up posters on the walls. There were the same posters Eli had been forced to look at all of last year plus new ones. Tadashi was a huge fan of the K-pop group Echo, and was determined to cover every inch of their tiny dorm room with their faces. Eli dropped his bags on the floor beside his bed. As pretty as Lily Choi is, do you need to have her face everywhere? It's called inspiration. Tadashi gave him a look. And you're one to talk. Your social media is filled with photos of Mo. Eli coughed, his face turning red. That's different. Mo and I are friends. His friend shook his head and reached for a poster of Lily Choi and taped it to the wall. Do you think Mo has any idea that you're madly in love with her? I am not. Eli paused then asked. Is it that obvious? Even if I wasn't your best friend I would notice. You get all Twitter-patted around her. I do not. Yes you do. Do not. Do too. Tadashi let out a dreamy sigh and spoke in an exaggerated deeper voice to imitate Eli's. Hey, Montag. You look really pretty. Not that you're not always pretty because you are. I do not talk like that. And you smell really nice like marshmallows. She does, but what does that have to do with anything? I daydream about you and hope that you will return my feelings, even if I never make a move because I have zero game. Hey. Tadashi had no room to judge. They both had zero game. That's why they were friends aside from being assigned as roommates their first semester at CIT and both being engineering majors. They were equally as hopeless with girls. Let's go see if Mo's arrived, Tadashi suggested. She's living at Parker too this year. Too eager to agree, Eli could unpack his things later. He eyed the metal case of his suit and remembered Mr. Carlyle stressing the importance of hiding it well. He could do that later. He pushed the metal case under his bed and followed Tadashi out. Mo's room was at the end of the hallway and Tadashi knocked on the door as Eli tried not to fidget. The door opened and Mo's roommate Jenny Moon stared at them blankly. She always looked tired and wan. Eli used to think it was just stress from school. What? She asked. Tadashi raplia. Is Mo there? Jenny opened the door wider and moved out of the way to let them in. Mo was putting up a corkboard on the wall. She had unpacked most of her things and was organizing what she needed for the semester. Her side of the room was very tidy, not a sock out of place. Hey guys. Mo stopped what she was doing and came over to give Tadashi a hug. Mo was a hugger. I missed you too. Eli could not hide his smile as Mo gave him a hug. Tadashi was right. She smelled like marshmallows. She pulled away and asked, how is the Carlisle internship going? The internship was a cover for his recruitment into the Heroic League. They had to have a reason for how he spent his summer and why he would be going into the city so much. An internship with Carlisle Industries was a real thing that happened with CIT students, so it wasn't suspicious. Most students at their college graduated and ended up working for the company. It's going great, Eli replied. I'm learning a lot. Is George Carlisle like how he is on TV? I haven't seen him much. I mostly fetched coffee and lunch for people. Just being in the same building as George Carlisle is an honor, Tadashi countered. The hope of his genius rubbing off on you is worth it. Eli raised an eyebrow at him. Jealous. I'm seething, he replied. And to think you're the first sophomore to get that internship. They only used to pick seniors before. They saw that Eli was special and they couldn't help themselves, Mo remarked with a bright smile. Be still his beating heart. Thanks Mo. He told Tadashi. Sorry man. I wish they could have picked both of us. I would have been honored to be your fellow coffee slave, but alas real life had to disappoint. Cheer up Dash, Mo said. There's going to be a back-to-school party later. Do you guys want to go? Tadashi looked wary. What kind of party? It's not going to be like last time. You mean when I came home without my shoes and inhaler? Tadashi supplied, grimacing. My parents were not happy at having to get me a new one. Do you know how much an inhaler costs? Eli didn't remember much of that night. He just knew they made it back to their dorms somehow. We'll make sure you don't lose your inhaler this time, Emo reassured him. It'll just be some fun before the semester inevitably eats us alive. Eli and Tadashi couldn't really say no to her. Emo was good at getting her way. She turned to her roommate. What about you, Jen? Jenny was unpacking boxes of books and had been ignoring them. The blonde shook her head. I'm not really interested in watching you swoon over that guy from the rowing team. Eli stiffened and turned to Emo in confusion, hoping he misheard. He asked, what guy from the rowing team? Emo flushed and tucked her dark hair behind her ears. It was a nervous habit of hers. She answered, nobody. There's just this guy I met who said he was going to be at the party. It's nothing really. Eli didn't know what to say. He clenched his fists and the lights in the room flickered. He breathed in and out to calm himself before he caused the power in the building to short-circuit. It wouldn't be the first time. It's going to be at the rooftop of the gray building, Emo told them. Don't ditch me, okay?
Eli nodded.
I wouldn't miss it. As long as the world didn't need saving that night, he would be there. Chapter 3 Variable. The rooftop of the gray building was filled with people. Music was playing in the background as people drank bottles of beer. Eli recognized some people from his classes last year and Tadashi stopped to talk to them. Eli tried his best not to be rude but ultimately had to weave around the crush of people to get to where Emo was. He stopped when he saw her talking to a tall blonde guy. This must be the guy from the rowing team. The guy said something and Emo blushed, tucking her long dark hair behind her ears. A pit in Eli's stomach was growing as he tried to process what was happening. Then Emo turned and saw him. She smiled brightly and he forgot what he was so worried about. She waved him over and he reached her quickly. There you are, she said. For a second there, I thought you got lost on the way here. He snorted at her joke. The gray building was hard to miss. It was in the middle of campus. I wouldn't leave you hanging, he replied. He tried to keep his face impassive as he made eye contact with the other guy and asked, who's your friend? This is Blaze. He's on the rowing team and an aerospace engineering major. A smart jock wasn't that rare at CIT. That explained the muscles. Eli had seen the team in the mornings, rowing over the lake at ungodly hours, and decided early on in orientation that he wasn't interested in joining. He didn't like having to get up before breakfast was served in the dining hall. Blaze was objectively good-looking. His hair was a dark blonde that looked effortlessly messy. He was taller than Eli and reached over 6 feet. The fact he was more than a pretty face made him more intimidating. Eli's majoring in electrical engineering, Emo continued. He's interning for Carlisle Industries and he's only a sophomore. Blaze looked surprised. That's impressive. I was hoping to get an internship too next year since they now have their own space program. Eli rubbed the back of his neck. Being praised for something he never actually did was embarrassing, but a small part of him was glad to have something over the other guy. He mumbled out a thanks. Aren't they launching the space probe next month? Emo remarked, then nudged Blaze lightly with her elbow. Maybe you'll get to go on space missions someday. Blaze smiled warmly. That's the dream. Eli was about to cut in, trying to think of anything to stop this travesty from continuing when Tadashi came over. Check this out. He showed them his phone screen. There was footage of the fight in the city with Smokeburn earlier that day. We got a new super. There was Eli in his shiny metal suit and dispatching the thugs in front of the bank. It was an out-of-body experience for Eli to see himself on video like that. With his face covered, there was no way people could tell that was him in the suit. Even his friends couldn't tell that was him. Isn't that just Chromium? Emo asked. Maybe he revamped his look. Tadashi showed Chromium and Eli fighting with Smokeburn. That's Old Tin Man along with the new guy. Emo took the phone from Tadashi to rewind the footage. She zoomed in on Eli's suit gleaming under the afternoon sun. We haven't had a new super in a while. Who is he? The League's PR team released a statement after the fight, Tadashi answered. He's called Electric with a K. Tadashi showed them the bank robbery fight again, and the part where Eli electrocuted the thugs trying to dogpile on him and added, he can do everything Chromium does and he can use electric blasts.
Montag nodded.
I like his suit. The purple looks cool. Eli smiled and couldn't hide how pleased he was. Emo thought his suit was cool. If only she knew who Electric really was. Would she be impressed? There's a new bad guy too. Tadashi showed the man in the red mask pulling Chromium into the truck. No one knows his name yet. He seems to have the same powers as Smokeburn. Emo raised an eyebrow. A new Chromium and Smokeburn? Tin Man and Stovetop have been at it for a while. Maybe they're throwing in the towel and letting the kids take over. Do you think the new guys are related to them? Tadashi looked thoughtful. Could you imagine being raised by a superhero or villain? That has to be insane. Emo turned to Eli. What do you think? Eli shrugged, avoiding having to actually answer. His life just seemed to be one fib after another. The first thing he was taught after joining the Heroic League was the importance of keeping his identity a secret. It not only endangered themselves but everyone they knew. Blaze was looking at his phone, uninterested with the talk of supers. He left them to talk to other people and Eli was not sad to see him go. How old do you think he is? Emo asked. The last new hero was Valiant and he was 20-something when he joined the HL, Eli replied easily. There hasn't been a teenage superhero since the 90s. It wasn't a complete lie. Eli was going to be 20 next year, and then he wouldn't be a teenager. Emo added, I bet he's cute. Tadashi scoffed. You can tell with his face completely covered? I bet he wears a full mask so no one can see his ugly mug. Eli elbowed Tadashi hard. His friend stared at him wide-eyed. What was that for?
Muscle spasm, eli deflected, unapologetic.
Whoops. Tadashi tried to elbow him back but Eli blocked it. All that combat training could be really useful. Before Tadashi could question Eli's new agility, Emo cut in. I just have a feeling he's cute. And I bet he's nice too. All heroes are nice, Tadashi countered. It's kind of their thing. Save the day and all that jazz. Eli knew that better than anyone. All heroes were nice. He tried to remind himself that as he kept imagining elbowing Blaze in the face next. Chapter 4. Calibrate. Eli stretched his muscles before starting on a light jog. The campus was empty so early in the morning and most people were still in bed. Eli didn't used to be a morning person. His mom and older sister had a tough time waking him up for school because he could sleep through a nuclear blast. Emo was a natural morning person. Her ponytail swung as she jogged in front of him. All her years of soccer left their mark on her. Emo would get moody without her morning routine. On your left, he called out as he caught up to her. Morning, Emo. Mo's brown eyes widened in surprise and she smiled. Morning, Eli. You're up early. Since when do you jog in the mornings? I started working out in the summer. A summer of being forced to wake up early for combat training changed him. His body woke up at sunrise no matter how late he went to bed the previous night. He could not go back to sleep no matter how tired he was. He would eventually get up and put on his running shoes. He even grew to masochistically like it. Valiant went running with him every morning around the HL base outside of the city, pushing his limits and encouraging him until Eli could run for miles. He no longer collapsed to the ground and wished for death at the end of each run. Emo looked him over, taking note of the lean muscle on his arms. He used to be a lanky stick that might blow away in a gust of wind. Aren't you full of surprises? She remarked. Anything else you did over the summer? He shrugged. Wouldn't you like to know? I thought you were busy as a coffee slave. I squeezed in some gym time. You look good. Emo realized what she said and stammered. I mean it suits you better. Not that you looked bad before.
Eli grinned brightly.
She looked away, flushing lightly. She noticed the changes in him but didn't know how to feel about it. Eli hadn't been unattractive but now he looked stronger and even stood taller. There was a healthy glow to his skin like he spent a lot of time outside in the sun. It is nice not to be out of breath when I climb a flight of stairs, he admitted. Or when I have to chase the bus. Emo laughed, nodding in agreement. Is this your year of self-improvement? Among other things. What other things? He was about to answer when a male voice called out, Emo. The blonde waved from the dock to where the rowing team was finishing up with practice. Blaze was sweaty and shirtless, which was very distracting. He looked like a Calvin Klein ad. It didn't help he had a face that would be perfect for billboards and magazines. Emo waved at him as they passed by, trying to keep her gaze away from his glistening golden muscles. She didn't want to be caught staring at him like a creep. Did he have to be shirtless? It was no unnecessary. He seems sweet on you, Eli remarked. Blaze. Emo shook her head, laughing softly. He flirts with every girl. He even tried it with Jenny once but she shot him down. To be fair, Jenny didn't like anyone. Blaze didn't take it to heart. He didn't seem to take a lot of things to heart which Emo found appealing. She was self-aware enough to admit it. Eli's dark eyebrows furrowed and he asked, Would you go out with him if he asked you? Maybe. He's nice enough. Eli didn't say anything. He looked troubled. He kept quiet as they continued their run. He even ignored her, trying to bait him by making fun of Star Wars. She was getting really concerned. He usually did not take slander about his favorite sci-fi films lightly. Eli, Emo said, is there any reason why I shouldn't go out with Blaze? Eli stopped.
Montag weitet.
As easy as Eli got distracted when he wanted to really focus on something, he could give it his all. When he took her hand in his and stared at her with his brown eyes, it felt like nothing else existed for him but her in that moment. Do you remember when we first met? He asked. I couldn't focus during orientation because everything felt so overwhelming. You noticed, and instead of being annoyed with me, you handed me the Jaguar plushie in your bag. She remembered that day clearly. The boy beside her kept fidgeting, and she knew enough from her brother to recognize the signs. She gave him the toy as a distraction. Little did she know that same boy would keep bringing up her plushie like an inside joke. She was mortified. You're never going to let me forget I brought a stuffed animal to college, are you? She was homesick, and only whispers had been able to comfort her. She brought him with her since she had to go to a college across the country. The longest she'd been away from her family previously was 4 days. The plushie was her little slice of home. It was tidier than a jar of sand. I thought it was cute, and Whiskers got us through a lot. He squeezed her hand reassuringly. I don't think I could have survived college with you. Her heart beat faster as his words sank in. They were on the edge of something. She didn't know where they were going to land. She was too afraid to even try to name it. His smartwatch started beeping. He closed his eyes and refused to look at it. Not now, he muttered. Please, not now. Maybe you should look at that, Emo suggested. The beeping grew louder until he could no longer ignore it. He let go of Mo's hand to look at the screen. He sighed deeply. He told her regretfully, I'm sorry, but I have to go. She tried to hide her disappointment and relief. It was an odd combination of emotions. She replied, I'll see you later. He turned away and ran. She never saw him run with such purpose before. She wondered how many ways Eli changed over the summer. And why did she feel so bereft to see him go? Chapter 5 Inquiry. Eli contemplated calling his sister. Catherine Wilde was the most competent woman he ever met, and could tackle any problem head-on. She would also not hesitate to tease him to death if he told her he needed her advice on confessing his feelings to his best friend. Eli was still dealing from the trauma from the time Catherine had to give him the talk, and he did not want to repeat. He had been so close to telling Emo about his feeling that morning before he had to go fly off to deal with a burning building. He was never going to shirk off his duties, but couldn't they have waited 10 more minutes? Was that too much to ask for? Why is this so hard? Eli thought aloud. How am I supposed to do this? Is that a hypothetical question? The pleasant female voice of his suit's AI chimed out. He nearly fell from his bed in shock. How are you listening in? I'm not even in the suit. I am always online. I am connected to all your devices, especially the smartwatch Mr. Carlyle gave you. Eli looked suspiciously at the expensive smartwatch. He thought it was just a nice gift, but there was never such a thing with the Heroic League. He asked, Are you spying on me for Mr. Carlyle? Mr. Carlyle insisted on surveillance for your safety and convenience. I am here should you need any assistance. Unbelievable. This is a serious invasion of privacy. This was listed in the waiver Mr. Carlyle made you sign for joining the Heroic League on page 11, paragraph 7. I remember what I signed.
Eli scolded.
There had been so much paperwork the words began to blend into each other, until he didn't know what was comma from apostrophe. It was probably on that waiver, and who knows what else he agreed to. He sighed. Could you call Mr. Carlyle for me? There was a pause before the AI responded. Mr. Carlyle is in a meeting at the moment. Would you like to leave a message? Eli lied down on his bed and wondered how this was his life. I'm good. Thanks. You're welcome, Eli. He tried to ignore the fact he was talking to a disembodied voice and not an actual person. He asked, Do you have a name? You may call me Rose. I didn't know you had a name. You never asked. He spent all of summer with Rose speaking into his ear while in the suit and hadn't thought to ask. Mr. Carlyle only told him that the AI in his suit was there to assist him in missions. He tapped on the smartwatch on his wrist and looked for any updates. There were a few news reports about missions handled by the older heroes. Xavier was being praised for saving an airplane from crashing. There was a photo of him carrying the plane, his red cape behind him. Eli felt restless. Instead of doing her work, he was unproductively obsessing over his feelings for Mo. Rose, he started. You're a girl, right? I have no gender. I am an artificial intelligence. Yes, but do you have any knowledge about girls? I have access to millions of databases and I can look up any information you require. Let's say you're a girl and I have feelings for you. We're good friends, but I'm not sure if you see me the same way, Eli explained. What do you think I should do? My quick research says that confessing your feelings will help resolve the conflict. But what if you don't feel the same way about me? Knowing the extent of emotions is better than living in indecision, Rose advised. Prolonging the inevitable will only raise your anxiety, which can ultimately be detrimental to your overall health and well-being. He didn't know why asking an AI for advice would be useful.
Eli snorted.
Thanks, Rose. You're welcome, Eli. Eli got to his feet. I should just tell her, huh? Now is as good a time as any. He had to rip it off like a band-aid. No more of this indecision and doubt. He would confess to Mo today. Before he could lose his nerve, he left his dorm. Tadashi was at a club meeting and wouldn't be back till later. Eli knew Mo would be at the library, working on floor plans with her classmates. He stopped when he saw Mo sitting at a table sketching. Come on, Wild, he told himself. You can do this. As he got closer to her, music started blaring from the speakers. It was that old Taylor Swift song, You Belong With Me. It made everyone look up in surprise, especially the librarians who scrambled to turn off the music. Eli tried to ignore it and went to Mo. Mo smiled when she saw him. She looked tired. Her hair was in a messy bun that was barely holding on. Heart in his throat, he pushed himself to continue. I need to tell you something. The music got louder and they could barely hear each other. Frustrated, Eli insisted they leave the library. They packed up her things and went to the student center next door. They barely sat down on a bench when the speakers blared out music. It was the same damn Taylor Swift song. Somebody's a bigger Swiftie than I am, Mo remarked. Are they hacking all the speaker systems? That made Eli pause. He turned away and hissed to his smartwatch like an unhinged character in a cartoon. Stop it, Rose. You're not helping. The music stopped. That was better. Montag. Eli glared in disbelief as Blaze Hart approached them. Where did he come from? Eli was beginning to really dislike Blaze Hart. The fact that the guy wasn't unlikable made it worse. He had no real reason to want to punch him except that Blaze was always flirting with Mo. Every time Eli turned, Blaze appeared, ready to intrude on any moment.
Blaza.
Mo stood up and laughed as Blaze pulled her into a hug. Where have you been? Eli raised his wrist to his mouth. I changed my mind, Rose. Help me. The fire alarm went off. Water showered them from the emergency sprinklers. They had to run out of the student center immediately. Mo was devastated when her sketches for class got wet. He and Mo spent hours trying to dry them out with a blow dryer and Faith. At least it got rid of Blaze. I can't believe that happened, Mo said, despondent. These are ruined. Eli rubbed the back of his neck, the guilt gnawing at him. She would hate him if she knew it was technically his fault. He wouldn't have blamed her. Can you redraw them? He asked. Yes, but it's just annoying. She turned off the blow dryer and put it aside. I'll have to go to my room and work on these. Mo was stressed out and confessing his feelings seemed like a bad move. He would have to try again on another day. Eli had to give specific instructions to Rose that she was only allowed to help him for superhero-related matters. He should have just called Catherine. Chapter 6 Viscosity. Mo frowned at her sketch pad. Her eyes were too tired from hours of trying to draw another floor plan. She spent a week mostly living in the drafting room and surviving on coffee and granola bars. This baffled Eli, who refused to believe that granola was food. She missed him. She even missed his senseless convictions. Eli seemed to always be running. Mo couldn't help notice that he couldn't seem to stay in one place for too long. She felt like she hadn't spent any time with him since the semester started because he was always sneaking off somewhere. She couldn't even ask what was going on with him because he didn't stay long enough to give her the chance. She asked Tadashi if he noticed their friend's odd behavior, but he seemed just as clueless as she was. He could be busy with classes. Maybe he joined more clubs this year. Maybe he had a new girlfriend. She couldn't really picture Eli dating. She knew he dated people in high school. It had been a surprise. She saw in action how hopeless he was at flirting. Everything went dark. 2 hands came from behind her and covered her eyes. Guess who? A male voice whispered in her ear. She relaxed when she recognized the voice. Blaze. Are you sure? She tried to pull at his hands. Stop playing around. And Blaze is the right answer. He uncovered her eyes and took the seat beside her. Congrats. You've won $1 million. She scoffed. Great. I wonder how I'm going to spend all my new money. Buy a sports car or a Bengal tiger. He shrugged easily. Or you can forego the money and go on a date with me instead. She paused and gave him a questioning look. For real? You're not just flirting again. First of all, I still want to continue flirting with you because it gets you all flushed and pretty. He smiled. Second, I would like to take you out and we can see where this goes. She gripped her mechanical pencil tightly, unsure of how to answer. Blaze Hart was too handsome and too charming. He was the kind of boy that was never without a girl for too long. He was the kind of boy that her mama told her to stay away from. Noticing her indecision, Blaze added, "One date, Mo. That's all I'm asking for. If it goes badly, you can pretend we never met and I'll never bother you again." Never. He ran his hand through his dark blonde hair. I might try to persuade you on a second date. Having learned from my mistakes the first time round, I would make sure the second date goes perfectly. Then you wouldn't want to avoid me for the rest of our lives. She smiled, unable to help herself. Blaze Hart could sell ice to a polar bear if he wanted. Fine, she told him. You get one chance. 2 chances, he replied. I get to try again with the perfect second date, remember? She laughed and agreed. He grinned. He had a great smile, warm with perfect teeth. When Blaze Hart smiled, no girl stood a chance. She was in trouble. You won't regret it. I promise, he said. She had to leave to get dinner at the dining hall. She found Tadashi and Eli helping themselves to the taco bar. It made her miss her hometown where they served avocados with everything. Avocados were a difficult commodity to find in the East Coast. She would have to make do. As she tried to assemble her tacos, Eli greeted her. Hi. E. She settled on soft-shell tacos. I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. He paused. I know. I've been busy with things. It's been hard to juggle everything together. You need to learn time management, she advised him. Have an itinerary. It'll help you from being overwhelmed and to keep on track. That's what I do. She kept planners both physical and on an app. She loved sticky notes, reminders, and marked calendars. Organizing things was one of her favorite things in the world. I can't really predict one of the things I'm juggling. I kind of just have to drop everything and take care of it. Is it necessary in your life, or is it giving you unneeded stress? Have you considered giving it up? His eyes widened and shook his head. I can't do that. It's the one thing I'm sure of. It's my purpose. If it's that important, why not give up another thing? The other things are important too. The way he was looking at her made her heart beat faster. It felt so similar to that one morning during their jog. He was about to say something before he had to run off. Sounds difficult, she remarked. You're right, I need to learn to manage things better, he said. I miss spending time with you. Let's fix that. Are you doing anything this weekend? She tucked her hair behind her ears and replied apologetically, I'm going on a date. He stilled. With who? Blaze Hart. He looked stricken. His brown eyes were wide. His shoulders dropped as he swallowed. He turned away. That makes sense, he said. Of course it's him. She could see that he was really upset. She tried to touch his arm to comfort him, but he moved away from her. Eli. I should go, he insisted. I just remembered I have to do something. She didn't want him to leave. He was always running off. She pointed out. You haven't even eaten. He looked down at his tacos. He overstuffed them. The vegetables on top spilled out of the hard shells. He handed the plate of tacos to a confused Tadashi. I'm not hungry anyway, he said. I'll see you guys later. He walked away without looking back. Tadashi asked. What's wrong with him? I don't know, Mo answered. I really don't know. Chapter 7 Velocity. Saturday finally came and Blaze refused to tell Mo what he planned for their date. Mo hated surprises and preferred knowing beforehand what was going to happen if she could help it. She tried to give Blaze a list of pre-approved of surprises which she was sure he ignored. All her pre-approved surprises could have been done in town. There was no reason they had to go into the city. Mo stared him down, hoping to break him with peer pressure. Blaze only smiled at her and kept his attention on the road as he drove. Her anxiety heightened as she watched the view outside his car. She couldn't even panic Google because Blaze confiscated her phone earlier, declaring a no-phone policy on their date. Give me a hint, Mo insisted. Just a teeny tiny one. Blaze smiled wider. You're so cute, and the answer is no. Please. Trust me. He reached for her hand and kissed the back of it. You're going to love it. How would you know that I won't hate it? He didn't let go of her hand, It's going to be the best date of your life. That's a bold statement, she pointed out. Are you sure you want to make claims like that? I'm sure. Emma watched the car pass through the city and tried to guess where they were headed. When he parked the car outside the William Peace Arena, she had to compose herself. She knew what event was headlining in the arena that night. She didn't want to hope and only be disappointed. Please tell me you got us Taylor Swift concert tickets. Don't let this be a joke, she whispered, too scared to talk in a higher volume. He reached over and opened the glove compartment. There were 2 tickets inside. He replied. Premium VIP. How? She was nearly hysterical from surprise, excitement, and possibly delirium. Those were sold out. I couldn't even get a ticket. She tried for days. She couldn't afford VIP unless she sold one of her kidneys, but the cheap seats were the first to go. She nearly cried when she realized she wouldn't be able to go. She had to make peace that listening to the latest album was all she would be getting. Blaze shrugged. I have my ways. Now, are you going to get out of this car? Or are we going to have to listen to the music from here? He didn't have to tell her twice. She wrapped her arm around his as they made their way to the priority entrance. There was a waiting lounge where they had dinner and drinks. There was no meet and greet for this tour, but it didn't make her any less ecstatic to know Taylor was nearby. How did you know? Mo asked. That I love Taylor Swift? I can do my research. I stalked your Spotify playlists and your Instagram stories. And I noticed the Taylor Swift pins on your backpack. She touched one of the newest pins she stuck on her jacket. Her obsession wasn't exactly subtle. She was still impressed that he went through all this effort. And she remembered how much those tickets cost. This is too much, she said. You spent a small fortune on a first date. That's insane, Blaze. Maybe, but I can't get those tickets refunded, so we might as well enjoy the concert. He raised his glass and clinked it against hers. To the best date of your life. As the concert started, they were escorted to their seats. Mo had never been this close to a stage before. She nearly lost her voice screaming when Taylor ascended the stage and started singing Blank Space. Blaze laughed when Mo practically burst into tears. He hugged her from behind, resting his head on her shoulder as she sang along loudly and off-key. He swayed with her as Taylor and her backup singers performed Me. After the song ended, Taylor addressed the audience. Hello, New Welch. My name is Taylor. Mo was sweaty, exhausted, and drunk from happiness when the concert finally ended. Blaze held her hand as they walked out of the arena. They were given their VIP gifts and Mo was eager to go through them in the car. Mo clutched the box to her chest like it was a baby as they made their way to the parking lot. Thank you for this again, Mo told him. I'm going to remember this night for the rest of my life. I told you it was going to be the best date. You can tell your grandkids about it. It's on the itinerary. He smiled and she couldn't believe she was on a date with this handsome, nice boy who got her concert tickets for her favorite artist at the last minute. He even smelled good. His green eyes stared down at her lips and he leaned down. She closed her eyes and waited. There was a loud boom and screams followed. They looked up in shock as the top of the arena exploded. Concrete and steel rained down from the sky and straight towards them. Blaze moved instinctively and pushed her out of the way. She landed on the ground, dropping the VIP gift. The wind was knocked out of her. Her eyes widened as she saw burning concrete about to hit her. She wouldn't be able to move away in time. She closed her eyes and braced herself for impact. It never came. She was in the air. A man in a metal suit was carrying her in his arms. She stared in surprise at the metal mask he wore. His glowing purple eyes were blank. He asked, "Are you okay?" She nodded, speechless. He gently descended to the ground, and she was back on her feet, her knees wobbly from adrenaline. She was more than a little dazed as she stood in front of Electric. He was the new superhero. "Thank you," she said. "You saved my life." "No problem, ma'am." He saluted her. Surprised, she laughed and saluted him back. He flew off like a rocket. His metal suit stood out like a bright star in the night sky. Chapter 8. Propulsion. As Eli flew away from the William Peace Arena, he wanted to die. Why did he salute Mo? Why was he like this? He blew what should have been a romantic moment of him saving the damsel by making it cringeworthy. He cursed his inability to be cool for longer than 2 minutes. With his luck, he would be known as that hero who saluted people all the time and gave cheesy one-liners. He was so distracted he didn't see the attack before it was too late. A blast of energy hit him and threw him back by several feet. "Warning, system functions deactivating," Rose said before she went silent. His suit was a dead weight and dragged him to the ground. He crashed with a loud thud, gravel breaking underneath him. The force of the impact vibrated through his bones. The suit absorbed most of it, but the breath got knocked out of him. "Rose," he said. "Are you there, Rose?" There was no answer. He looked down and the glowing purple of his suit was gone. It was completely offline. He didn't think that was even possible. Mr. Carlyle designed it to handle all sorts of impact. He landed in an alley and watched as a figure appeared. They were carrying a weapon, a large sledgehammer. He scrambled to get to his feet. The figure ran towards him. He was able to sit up as the figure reached him and raised the sledgehammer. "Alex, no," he called out. "It's me." The man stopped and lowered the sledgehammer. Blue eyes stared at him suspiciously. "Eli." Eli pressed on the button at the side of the metal mask to peel it back and show his face. "Alex." Alex swore and dropped his weapon. He pulled Eli to his feet by the shoulders. He was furious, his face turning red. He demanded, "What are you doing wearing that suit? What are you doing trying to bludgeon people with a sledgehammer?" Eli returned, "What the hell, Alex?" Alex's blue eyes narrowed. "This isn't about me, you little twerp. I've known you since you were 12. What do you think you're doing flying around pretending to be a hero?"
Eli frowned, offended.
"I'm not pretending. I am a hero. You're a kid." They literally gave a gun to a toddler and expected things to work out. Alex shook his head. "And we're supposed to be the villains here." Eli hated that he felt like a kid that was caught doing something. He wasn't 12 anymore. He was legally an adult. Nobody could tell him what to do anymore. Especially not a supervillain who also happened to be his sister's ex-boyfriend. Alex looked him over. "You okay?" "Not injured. I'm more durable than that. I can handle a little fall." "I shouldn't be surprised. You never got sick either," Alex remarked. Then he wrapped arm around Eli's shoulders. "Have you had dinner yet?"
"I'm starving."
Alex's apartment was nearby, and they managed to sneak in without being seen. Eli took off the suit and left it in the corner while Alex threw his black mask onto the kitchen counter. They ordered cartons of Chinese food from the restaurant nearby. It all felt too familiar to eat at the fire escape and talk about their day like Alex hadn't tried to murder him earlier. They had too much history together for that to come between them. "What did you hit me with?" Eli asked. "The suit shouldn't have been disabled like that. It's a magnetized propulsion gun. The doc's new toy he wanted me to test out." "Well, it works," Eli griped. "I just happen to be your only choice for a guinea pig?" Some people also wanted to know who the new hero was. They offered a reward and I wanted a new TV. "And now you're going to rush off and tell them my identity? Don't be dumb, Eli." Alex gave him a look. "You're like a brother to me. And even if I did sell you out, Catherine would definitely kill me." It was comical that a supervillain who called himself Warhammer would be scared of anyone, but Catherine had that effect on people. Alex dated Catherine for over 5 years and knew what she was capable of. In that time, Alex advised Eli on girls and dates. He taught Eli how to fix things around the apartment and watched football games with him. Eli might have been sadder about the breakup than Catherine. He liked having an older brother, especially since he never had a dad. Alex Campbell was it for a short time. "I'm surprised you managed to keep this a secret from Kat for so long," Alex remarked, taking a big bite of orange chicken. "Why do you think she doesn't know?" Alex pointed to the Heroic League building in the distance with his chopsticks. "Because she would burn that place down out of spite when she finds out." "If she finds out?" Alex scoffed. "She'll find out. I know who I dated." "She's going to freak out," Eli moaned. "And she's going to lock me up in an attic and feed me moldy bread." Alex laughed, running his fingers through his chin-length dark hair. "It would serve you right. Look, I know you don't agree with me joining the HL, but this is my choice. Not yours or Catherine's," Eli countered. "Besides, you put yourself through danger all the time. I am a low-level grunt that swings a sledgehammer to scare people."
"I'm hired muscle."
Alex's expression was grim. "I'm not flying around with one of the most well-known superheroes in history. Chromium has a long list of enemies and you're inheriting all of them. They won't hesitate to attack you. Like you did. You're lucky it was me. Another villain wouldn't have stopped." Alex's blue eyes were concerned. "Do you have any idea what you've gotten yourself into?"
"Ido."
Alex shook his head. "I highly doubt that." Eli didn't know how to respond, so he didn't. He focused on his food. He stuffed his face with fried rice and dumplings. Food was the least complicated thing in his life. "I'm worried about you," Alex said. "Does the HL know about your connections with the Villain Alliance?" Eli shook his head. "They wouldn't have let me join if they did. You're keeping secrets from both sides." Pretty much. Alex patted him on the arm. You know this is going to end badly, right? Eli did know, but he wasn't going to give Alex the satisfaction of admitting he was right. Chapter 9 Reflect. Eli supposed there were worse ways to spend his Sunday than the lab at the HL Tower while Mr. Carlyle literally poked around his disabled suit. Mr. Carlyle only stopped to take notes on his tablet. Eli felt like a kid having to show his parent he broke his new toy. Thankfully, Mr. Carlyle was more intrigued than upset about the suit being disabled. He took things a lot better than Catherine when Eli broke the skateboard she got him for Chrismukkah. She refused to have the board fixed and Eli had to learn how to with ingenuity, determination, and the internet. Eli doubted they could fix the suit with only the power of Google and tape. What were you hit with? Mr. Carlyle asked.
A lightning bolt.
Magnetic propulsion gun. Dr. Downfall's new prototype. Mr. Carlyle smiled. He tapped the suit and tiny sparks came out. Good old document. What I would do to spend 5 minutes in his head. Brilliant man, such a shame he's completely insane. Eli saw enough of Dr. Downfall's inventions growing up to not disagree. It did seem a waste of intellect, but whatever made the guy happy was his business. Some people liked mini-golf and other people liked creating weapons of mass destruction. Everyone had their own thing. Can you fix it? Eli asked. Mr. Carlyle put on dark goggles and large sparks flew out of the suit. Have some faith, young Padawan. I just need to recharge your suit and upgrade it against future magnetic attacks. And how long would that take? I'll have it done by the end of the day. You can't rush genius. Any chance I can get it sooner? I have to get back to campus. I pay people to rush, people don't rush me. Mr. Carlyle looked up to give him a look that Eli felt even with the goggles. You can take the chopper back to campus. Eli stared at him in disbelief. I can't take your helicopter back to school. People will notice. You're interning for me, remember? Just say it's one of the perks of the job. Eli felt very self-conscious as the Carlyle Industries helicopter dropped him off at the Sati campus. He got a lot of looks that he tried his best to ignore. He felt like an international spy, but a bad one. Like if James Bond announced his arrival with fireworks at the start of each mission. Eli missed his suit. Being far away and unable to summon it felt odd. He couldn't immediately fly away to do his hero duties without it. He couldn't fly on his own like Savior. He was grounded, literally. He entered his dorm room to find Mo and Tadashi. The sight of Mo made him feel better. He spent the whole night reliving their moment in his head. Eli, Tadashi said. Where have you been? We tried to call you last night. I was in the city visiting a friend and my phone died. That wasn't completely a lie. He did spend the night on Alex's couch since it was too late to get the train back to campus. He took the seat beside Mo on his bed and asked, What's going on? Tadashi cut in before Mo could answer. Smokeburn attacked the William Peace Arena. Mo almost died last night. Eli pretended to be surprised like he wasn't at the event the previous night. Are you okay?
I'm fine. Montag replied.
Not that it wasn't terrifying for a good 2 minutes, but I am unscathed thanks to Electric. The new superhero?
Montag nodded, smiling.
I was about to get flattened like a pancake when he swooped me up and got me to safety.
Eli remembered in vivid detail.
He got the tip about the arena just as it exploded. Chromium and the other heroes went to save the civilians inside and around the arena. Eli saw Mo in the parking lot and felt a rush of panic. He needed to save her or he would die trying. You went to a concert and met a superhero. Tadashi shook his head. Some of us are born lucky, I guess. Mo smacked him on the arm. I almost died, you dummy. And where was Blaze during all of this? Eli asked. He hadn't forgotten that the two were on a date when all this happened. It was like the universe was agreeing with Eli's feelings on the situation. He saved me. He pushed me away from the falling concrete before Electric showed up. He has some superficial scratches, but he's okay. Eli frowned, annoyed that Blaze managed to compete with him with saving the day. Was there anything that guy couldn't do? Did he have super strength too? Couldn't he let Eli have one thing? He didn't get any burns? Tadashi inquired. I heard some people had to go to the hospital for burns and smoke inhalation. His jacket was completely ruined, but he wasn't burned. The fire couldn't even ruin his good looks. He probably would still be good even with scars. He would make them look rugged. None of this was fair. Wanting to change the subject from perfect Blaze heart, Eli told Mo, I'm glad you're okay. I hope this didn't ruin the concert experience for you. Thank you, Eli. She smiled and Eli reminded himself that Blaze heart may have saved her first, but Eli made it cinematic. and that meant he did it better. Mo added. Nothing can ruin Taylor Swift for me. Not even an arena exploding. Taylor tweeted #rise from the ashes and it's trending on Twitter. Tadashi remarked, showing his phone screen. There are memes of her as a phoenix. If anybody was a superhero, it would be her. Maybe not, Mo countered. Real superheroes hide in plain sight. They're usually the ones you least expect to be anything other than ordinary. Eli coughed, trying to hide how nervous this topic was making him. There's something weird about a super having a mundane day job, Tadashi said. Imagine Savior writing for a newspaper or Copycat working at a cafe. That would be the point, right? Anybody could secretly be a super and we would have no idea, Mo continued. Anybody we know could be a hero. Or a villain, Tadashi concluded.
Eli paused.
Blaze didn't get burned. Chapter 10 Theory. Blaze Hart couldn't be a supervillain. The idea was absurd. He may be a jerk for trying to steal Mo away, but that didn't make him an evil mastermind. He was a third-year engineering major and on the rowing team. He couldn't have the time to go off committing arson. Eli tried to list all of the reasons of why Blaze being a super was improbable. Blaze not getting burned after the arena explosion could just be plain old luck, as Mo wasn't burned either. Eli had to be overthinking. Paranoia was an affliction some heroes dealt with. At least that's what Mr. Carlyle told him the first week of training. Mr. Carlyle had his suit delivered to him at the end of the day. He found the metal suit in his dorm room. Tadashi was out getting takeout for their dinner, so Eli locked the door and put on the suit to check if it was working properly. All the functions seemed to be in order. Rose, he called. Are you there? I am online again. Mr. Carlyle has fixed the suit's vulnerability to magnetic force. The suit will now be able to absorb magnetic energy and convert it for reusage. That's good to know. Eli paused before asking, You're able to access databases, right? I have access to almost all of them. Could you look up a person? Maybe even access medical records? I am able to, Rose answered. May I ask who you want to look up? Eli took off the suit and placed it back in the metal case. He lied down on his bed and spoke to his smartwatch. It would be a severe invasion of privacy if I look him up. Mo would be furious if she finds out I did it. What is the purpose of you needing to invade somebody's privacy? I think he could be a supervillain, the new one who was with Smokeburn during the bank robbery. Light shot up from the smartwatch, a hologram of a video appeared. It was footage of the bank robbery, particularly of the new supervillain inside the truck. His face was covered by a red mask. Eli could still see his hair, which was a dark blonde color. Could be a coincidence. There were plenty of blonde guys in the world. There were lots of 6-foot-tall blonde guys. Superpowers are genetic, Eli said. Aren't there tests to check for the super gene? There are tests available, Rose replied. Carlyle Industries has a reliable test that is used to test candidates for the Heroic League. You were one of the successful candidates. I was. He had no idea he'd been tested. You tested positive for the super gene and scored high for heroic aptitude. Heroic aptitude? How did Carlyle Industries get a DNA sample? The AI went quiet. Rose, he said. How did they get my DNA? She finally responded. That is classified information. You do not have the clearance to access that data. Please refer to Mr. Carlyle. Eli cut her off. Of course I don't. And let me guess, I signed away my right to ask these questions in the waiver. Yes, on page 4, paragraph 6.
Eli groaned.
And this was why he needed to read the whole document before he signed anything. The next day, Eli had to skip one of his classes to fly into the city. He could have left it up to another hero, but there was a fire. And where there was fire, there was usually Smokeburn. He wanted to see if Smokeburn's protege was there. The problem was that Eli had an obsessive streak. It ran in the family. As easily distracted as he could be even with the Adderall, once he hyperfocused on something he could not be pulled away. He would not be able to give effort to anything else until he resolved this. He could not stop thinking about Blaze being a supervillain. He found himself observing the guy's every move when he saw him, which was usually around Mo. Eli seethed in jealousy and cataloged Blaze's behavior at the same time. What bothered Eli the most was the thought that Mo might be dating a bad guy. Mo deserved more than a villain. He thought of ways on how to check if Blaze was a super. Even if he could get his hands on a test, he still had to get his DNA. He couldn't imagine Blaze willingly handing that over. An apartment building was on fire. Eli flew inside the building through a window to look for people to save. His suit kept him cool from the heat of the flames and from inhaling smoke. The suit didn't have a built-in oxygen tank, so he couldn't stay long. He called out, "Is anybody here?" I'm here to help. Flames burst through a wall and a figure in a red mask stepped through. The figure did not say a word and threw a fireball at him.
Eli yelped. Viho.
What did I do to you? The red mask threw another fireball. Okay, I get it. You're not happy to see me, Eli quipped. But can we talk about this? Let me make it up to you. A tidal wave of flames came at him. Eli jumped up into the air to avoid it. Somebody's moody. Is it a pyromaniac thing, or just you? Another fireball. You're really beginning to hurt my feelings, Eli remarked. I guess we can't be friends. Before the red mask could throw more fire at him, Eli flew down and knocked him to the floor. They tussled trying to gain the upper hand, throwing punches at each other. The floor and walls were beginning to cave in. A fiery fist hit Eli in the face with enough force to make him pause. The red mask took the opening and got the upper hand, throwing more fiery punches at Eli. His suit was working overtime to keep him cool and absorb the impact. Desperate to make him stop, Eli grabbed at the mask on the other guy's face and pulled it off. The mask landed far away and Eli could finally see his Chapter 11 validate. It was Blaze Hart. I knew it, Eli muttered before sending an electric blast at the other guy. It threw Blaze across the room and he collided with a dresser. Blaze was only down temporarily before he was getting to his feet. The sparks from the blast clung to him. They traveled to his hands and absorbed into his skin. Eli's eyes widened, shocked. No way. Blaze didn't reply and threw the largest gust of fire. It enveloped Eli in a red-hot cocoon. He tried to move past it, but it tightened around him like a snake coiling. Rose warned, heat rising to dangerous levels and can disable suit's protective features. Move away from heat immediately. Eli countered. I'm trying. Electrical blasts were a bust. He didn't want to give the guy more power than he already had. He could manipulate temperature with his suit, but he needed a water source. Rose, activate magnetic feature now. Magnetic force activated. Every metallic item in the apartment flew at them. The pipes in the walls shook until they burst. Water sprayed down at them and extinguished the flames. Free from the fiery cocoon of death, Eli threw a gust of frigid air at Blaze, freezing the water on him. Blaze was still for a second before he burst into flames from head to toe. Bright, fiery eyes glared at him. What's your supervillain name?
Eli quipped.
Sunburn. Blaze finally spoke. It's Sunspark.
Eli shrugged.
I like Sunburn more. It suits you better. There were screams. Eli turned, knowing he needed to go save people, but he couldn't just leave Blaze. He needed to take him into custody. Shouldn't you go? Blaze mocked. Be the hero. Eli scowled and threw another electrical blast at him. Sunspark opened his arms and willingly absorbed the energy. He seemed to glow even brighter. It almost hurt to look at him, like looking directly into the sun. How are you able to do that?
Eli questioned.
Smokeburn can't absorb energy. He can't, but I can, Blaze answered. I'm not reliant on a metal suit either. The screams were getting louder. There were cries for help. Eli wished there were two of him. He glared at Blaze's fiery figure. This isn't over. I'll get you next time, he declared. I'd like to see you try. Eli turned towards the screams and the people that needed him. He saved and protected people first. He would get Blaze Sunspark, whoever he really was, eventually. He knew where the guy lived. Emma stood up to stretch. Her back was aching after sketching for so long. Her professor hadn't liked the last model she made, so she needed to restart from scratch. She thought, like most people, that taking up architecture would just be hours of endless sketching, which it was, but mixed with making mini models of those ideas. Her legs had fallen asleep. She jumped to get the blood flowing. Her major was largely solitary and she'd only been in one group project since. She wished sometimes she had someone to bounce ideas off of. She also wished that she could just show her professors the houses she made in The Sims and call it a day. She looked outside the window of the drafting room and watched the students passing by. She made sure to pick tables not under sprinklers ever since the incident in the student center. It was almost dinner time and her stomach reminded her that she hadn't eaten anything in hours. She packed up her things and left the room. She could find a vending machine and get a snack or stop by the convenience store on campus. If she was feeling brave, she could steal one of Jenny's Tim Tams and risk her roommate smothering her in her sleep. She just stepped out of the Watson building when she heard, "M.O." She turned around to see Eli running towards her. "Hi," she said. "Is everything okay?" He put his hands on her shoulders. His brown eyes looked harried. "Have you seen Blaze?" "Not today," she replied. "Is something wrong?" Eli's smile looked more like a grimace. "Everything is fine. If you see Blaze, please tell me." It's important. What is important? Eli's mouth opened and closed like a fish before he sputtered. Nothing. As if she was going to believe that. It doesn't seem like nothing, she pointed out. What's going on? It's really nothing. Guy stuff. Guy stuff.
Eli nodded.
Guy to guy stuff we need to only talk about with each other. He was fibbing. As the eldest of 3 kids and with 2 younger brothers, Mo could spot a fib a mile away. Eli's poker face was a disgrace. Her family would have destroyed him during the yearly New Year's Eve poker match. She crossed her arms over her chest and stared him down.
Eli. Spill.
Eli looked around as if he could find help from the other people walking past them, minding their own business. He rubbed the back of his neck. It's really. She cut him off. If you say nothing one more time I will smack you. His brown eyes stared down at her almost pleadingly. I can't talk about it now. It's classified. Classified? Like you're a spy. Did Eli think he was James Bond? He wasn't smooth enough. He was the opposite if anything. I might as well be at this point. He grumbled but she still heard him. Eli. I have to go. He moved away, far from her reach so she couldn't smack him if she wanted to. Please call me when you see Blaze. Wait. It was nice seeing you, Mo. He turned away and ran, his long legs taking him to freedom. Bye. Eli, she called out but he didn't look back. She wanted to take her shoe off and throw it at the back of his head. He couldn't run away forever. She would find out why he was acting so weird and secretive. She knew where he lived. Chapter 12 Catalyst. Valiant had showed up and helped Eli with getting people out of the building. Then, they assisted the firefighters with extinguishing the fire. He should have gone to the HL Tower and told Mr. Carlyle what he discovered about Suns Park, but he was more concerned about Blaze going back to say. The school was filled with innocent people and he did not know what the guy was capable of. He had flown from the city straight to the CIT campus. He changed out of his suit and found Mo. He was terrified she'd been kidnapped or stuffed in a fridge. Thankfully she was unharmed and he ran off to find Blaze. He spoke into his smartwatch. Rose, check any cameras around campus for any glimpse of Blaze Hart. I must advise that confronting him directly will not be the best plan of action. What am I supposed to do then? He replied. Let him walk around campus like he didn't set a building full of people on fire? Confronting him publicly may risk exposure of your own identity. He stilled. He knew Rose was right. He was being reckless but it was a risk he had to take. Check the cameras. I must advise. Please just do it. If an AI could sigh in exasperation Rose might have. There was a brief pause before she said, he's not on campus. He groaned. Great. Blaze might still be in the city, and it would take forever to search through all the boroughs even with the help of the HL. He would have to wait it out. Blaze had to come back to his dorm at some point, and Eli would be ready for him. There was a knock at the door. Mo put down her sketch pad and got up from her bed. She opened the door and found Blaze on the other side. He smiled and held up a bag of takeout. Is that Aling Elsis? She asked. I was in the city and got us dinner, he answered. Adobo is your favorite, right? She nodded eagerly. She let him into the room and they sat on her bed as they ate their early dinner. She nearly squealed in delight when she saw he also got them dessert. The halo had melted on the way to campus but she could still enjoy it as soup. I've never had this before, Blaze admitted. What's in it? Milk, fruit, sweet potatoes, sugar, creme caramel, beans and gelatin. Sounds chaotic. In a good way. Then she encouraged him, go on, try it. He ate a spoonful and blinked in surprise. That's really sweet. It's the best thing in the summer. He poked in the middle of purple soup. I can't even see everything in there. Half the fun is the digging, she explained. You don't know what you'll get with each bite. He carefully put the cup of halo down on her side table before he asked, do you like me, Mo? Ido. It was an easy answer. Blaze Hart was difficult to dislike. I was hoping for a second date since our first one ended in literal flames, he said. And you did agree to let me try again. I remember. And you can't really be blamed for an arena exploding. Great. I'll get to work on planning our next date. Are you going to actually look at my list of pre-approved surprises this time? He shook his head. The point of a surprise is that you'll have no idea.
I'm strictly off list.
She pouted, torn between her dislike of surprises and Blaze's surprises actually being really nice. He reached for her sketch pad on the bed and she tried to take it back from him. He stood up and held it high over her head. making it impossible for her to reach. He was nearly a whole foot taller than her. He flipped through the pages. It was her personal sketchpad, the one she didn't use for class. "They are really good," he remarked. "I didn't know you were artistic." "I'm from a family of artists," she explained, exasperated. "Really? My mom's a painter and my dad teaches at CVU. They have their own gallery in Bay Valley. That explains your talent." He paused at a sketch of Jenny. She drew it while her roommate was writing in her journal. He asked, "Why are you taking up architecture instead of going to art school?" "I'm okay, but not good enough to make a career out of it." She pointed to the drawing. "I drew Jenny's eyes too far apart and I couldn't get her nose right. So," she sighed, "I draw as a hobby, but I like architecture. I want to be able to build things someday." He flipped to another page. It was one of Eli. He fell asleep one time in the library and she captured it. Blaze closed the sketch pad abruptly. "Why don't you draw me?" he asked. "I haven't had the chance to." He handed her the sketch pad. "You can draw me whenever you want. How about now?" "Now. I did feed you after all." She tucked her hair behind her ears. "The lighting's terrible here." "Then let's go somewhere with better lighting." He stood up and held out his hand for her to take. She stared up at him, his easy grin daring her to come with him. She took his hand and he pulled her to her feet. He didn't let go of her hand. He cocked his head towards the door. "Where to?" "The library should still be open." She grabbed her pencil case and they left the dorms for the library. It was nightfall, but Mo knew this path. She could walk it in her sleep. They just reached the door of the library when there was a shout. "Hey!" Eli was running towards them. Blaze stilled before he turned to her and insisted, "Go inside. I'll be right in." "Is something wrong?" "Eli and I need to have a little talk." "It's nothing really." Eli told her the exact same thing, which did not make her feel less concerned. She looked over at where Eli was running up the steps. His face looked panicked. "It's fine," Blaze murmured in her ear. "Only talking." "No violence," she joked. He chuckled and kissed her cheek. "Promise." Despite her reservations, she entered the library. She stopped outside the glass doors and Blaze smiled at her. He gestured for her to move. She sighed before turning to go to her favorite table in the library. They would be fine. It's not like they were going to kill each other. Chapter 13 Recessive. Eli watched Mo enter the library, feeling his heart about to explode in his chest. He ran across campus when Rose was able to see Blaze and Mo leaving the Parker building on the surveillance cameras. He camped outside Blaze's dorm, thinking that would be where the guy would head to first. He might have lost a few years of his life as the fear that gripped his throat. All he saw was Mo beside a supervillain who had set an apartment building filled with people on fire earlier that day. Blaze could just as easily kill Mo in that time it took Eli to get to them. And Mo looked at this boy with trust, having no idea what Blaze's heart really was. Eli could only run, wishing he had super speed or could control time. Blaze stared him down blankly. Eli waited for him to make the first move. Rose had the suit on standby for him. This would be messy. Blaze walked closer and Eli tensed. He held out a hand in front of him, ready to throw an energy blast strong enough to power a city block if he had to. Blaze could absorb it, but a power storage had a set capacity. Eli could overload him if he needed to. Blaze walked past him on the steps. Eli turned around confused. The other boy kept walking and didn't stop. He called out, "Come on, Wild." Eli followed reluctantly. "Where are you going?" "Away from witnesses," he retorted. "Or do you prefer an audience?" Eli hated that he made sense. Blaze led them to the area of campus that sat mostly empty. The only building nearby was under reconstruction, and there was a low chance of anyone passing by. There was a lone street lamp and the rest of the area was shrouded in darkness. A fireball appeared in Blaze's hand, illuminating his face. "Here's what's going to happen, Wild," Blaze said. "You keep quiet about what you know about me and things don't have to get ugly."
Eli paused.
"Wait. You know about..." "Cut the bullshit. I know you're electric." "How?" Blaze shrugged. "I was just guessing, but thank you for confirming it." Eli opened and closed his mouth like a fish. He couldn't believe he got duped out of revealing himself. Mr. Carlyle was going to be furious. He asked, "Who else knows?" "Only me. For now." Blaze cocked his head. "Or I could go and tell the other villains your identity. They have a reward up for Electric's real name. And I could use the money for my next date with Mo." Panic made his heart beat faster, but he was not going to let this jerk see how bothered he was. He bit out, "Leave Mo out of this." I would prefer Mo never find out about any of this, which is why you need to keep your mouth shut. Eli glared at him. Mo deserves better than a guy who regularly commits arson. And she deserves what, Wild? A hero. Blaze smiled mockingly. You're not very good at hiding your feelings. I know about your little crush. Eli tried to ignore the jibe. He was being distracted from what he needed to focus on. He said, "It would only take one call to the HL and you'll be spending the rest of your life in prison. I won't hesitate to take you down with me. It would take one call to the VA, and everyone you care about will be a target. You'd put Mo in danger like that? I can keep her safe. I don't have the same moral scruples as you." Eli had never felt so torn. It was his duty to report about Sunspark so the HL could stop him and hopefully Smokeburn from their reign of terror. He would lose all privacy and semblance of safety once people found out his identity. And Catherine was going to be pissed about his mountain of lies and secrets. "You want me to pretend I don't know what you're doing off campus?" Eli said. "I'm supposed to turn a blind eye when you hurt people? When we're out there and we're electric in Sunspark, we can fight to the death as much as you want." Blaze settled. "But when the masks are off, I don't want a word or even a hint from you to anyone else. You stay out of my way. And Mo is my girlfriend, or she's as good as. There's nothing complicated about it. I'm her friend." As much as it pained him to admit, that was all he was. He had waited too long and let other things take his time. And this villain came and swooped Mo off her feet. Blaze's heart wasn't done twisting the knife. "Friends come and go," Blaze declared. "Like heroes do." Eli swallowed, feeling helpless and frustrated. Blaze bumped his shoulder roughly as he passed by. Eli clenched his fists and concentrated on his breathing. He needed to keep calm. He remembered the Hall of the Fallen in the HL Tower. Mr. Carlyle gave him a tour over the summer. There was a floor in the tower that was filled with the memorabilia of dead heroes. From photos and newspaper clippings to suits and personal items, it was equal parts museum and mausoleum. It fascinated and intimidated Eli. Carlyle was one of the oldest in the HL, having mentored under the Old Guard, the world's first superheroes. He'd seen more than his share of fellow heroes in dying. The casualty rate of heroes was something they avoided talking about. He hated Blaze's heart. He wanted to pummel Blaze's face into the ground. He didn't care how many burns he would get in the process. Anger built and built inside him until he felt he would burst. The street lamp exploded in a shower of sparks before dying out. He was in darkness. Eli's lives felt like a house of cards. He was one wrong move away for it all to come tumbling